We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking about the new movie, Blue Beetle. This is a new DC film that is out. I think it's probably the second one that's come out this summer, second to Flash. And I think before we get into too much here, I think we should kind of tell you guys how much we keep up with stuff. That way it kind of paints a better picture of where our opinion is coming from. So we keep up quite a bit with Marvel for the most part with the movies. We're a little behind in the shows. But as far as DC, The Flash is probably the most recent thing we've seen, obviously, but it's like the first thing we've seen in a long time for DC. We hadn't watched hardly anything. I think the last thing before The Flash was Aquaman, which was a handful of years ago. So we're pretty casual watchers for this genre. So we're going to go.
I have a question, and I don't know if this counts or not.
Okay.
The Robert Pattinson Batman, does that count?
I don't know when that came out, but I guess that would count before or more recently than Aquaman.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if it was like a separate universe. And you're like, no, that's different.
Well, it is a separate universe, but it's not a separate comic book place. But we're gonna go ahead and give you some non-spoiler opinions first, and then we will let you know when we're gonna go into spoilers, and then talk more in depth about the movie to reinforce the ratings that we give it here in the non-spoiler section. So I guess for me, I can tell you that I liked it. I was really open-minded, needless to say, going into it. The previews really didn't give me a whole lot of I don't know, excitement is anticipation. It didn't give me a lot of anticipation. I didn't know really what to expect. It seemed kind of like a weird superhero to be coming out. Because whenever I hear about the DC films and I think about the ones that, are more part of the Justice League. And if this dude is a part of it at some point, please excuse me. I don't know about that stuff. But outside looking into the comic book world, I was just going into this movie open-minded, not really expecting anything except for, hoping that it's going to be a pretty good DC film. I thought it was. What did you think about it?
I was excited for this movie. I know we don't typically keep up on DC films, or at least we haven't in the past necessarily. But and I didn't think about this until after we saw the movie, but it kind of almost gave me Venom vibes, which you can pick up on from the trailer, how the Blue Beetle is like incorporating itself into the main character and kind of the struggle between what your new identity is with this, and you can get that from the trailer, so I don't think that's really a spoiler. But yeah, I was just excited for another superhero movie, and it looked like it was fun. I was really nervous about George Lopez being in it, just because some of his recent comedy shows, I've seen the commercials 80 billion times, and so I've gotten a little tired of him. But I do think he actually did a good job. He was not annoying. I thought he was funny. He's not like one of the super main characters because it's basically Blue Beetle going through and trying to figure stuff out. But he plays a decent role in there, like he's in there a decent amount of time, and I thought he did a good job. Referring to George Lopez again.
He was my favorite part of the film. Kind of where I'm coming from, like how Sarah kind of explained, what she's experienced with George Lopez. When I was younger, I really did not like George Lopez's comedy because I kind of felt like it was almost forced because he kind of had like this mannerism that he would do after every joke that kind of told the audience, hey, you're supposed to laugh at that kind of a thing. it's kind of like a look that he does after he says stuff. But in this movie, he didn't do it at all. He just basically he wasn't George Lopez. He was, you know, what was the character name? He was Rudy. So um I really liked that. I thought it was a very, very good performance by George Lopez. And if anything, I was always waiting to see what he was going to do next on film. I actually put him above Blue Beetle in his own film.
It's a interesting way to highlight who your favorite character is. Um, I don't know. I'm not sure that there's really much more to say in terms of non-spoilers. There was a good amount of action sequences. There was a good amount of drama, but not enough to take away from like the main story. There was some emotional times. There was some really exciting times. Um, I feel like the music was pretty good. Music could have been a little bit better, I guess, just because it seemed a little repetitive, maybe. But
I
it
think
it
I
kind of
think what
balanced
you're
out.
I think what you're looking for is it wasn't unique.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the point of a theme song is that like the overall theme appears in all the different music throughout the film, or yeah, throughout the film. Um, but it has to feel unique to the scene per se, not make it feel like every scene is the same, I suppose. I will say one thing that I kind of was a little worried about was so when this movie first started, and then he, first gets the Blue Beetle outfit, armor, whatever you want to call it. Um, in the trailer, there's the scene where he's like going all around, and he lands in the street, and then a bus is coming at him, and the thing comes out, and then he slices through the bus during that whole beginning sequence. He reminded me a lot of Deadpool. Like he even did like the oh kind of a thing when he was going through all that. And I was like, please don't try to be somebody else. Please make this character unique, and not rely on other things. And after that opening sequence, he dropped it immediately. So I was very happy to find out that he didn't just copy somebody else's version of a superhero, so to speak. So I can attest to that he at least feels unique. I think the actor did a good job. I think if they pursue the Blue Beetle in the future, that he'd be a great one to come back. Um, I think I like the whole family. Needless to say, I there's these characters in movies that aren't really my favorite, and kind of going along the lines of what I said about George Lopez with his comedy in the past, how I kind of felt he kind of forced some of it a little bit. The character I'm going to talk about now is the grandma, and she has like this attitude slash just way of communicating with people where she so we see in the trailer that she has like this macho machine gun, and then she's like blasting people to bits. Okay, so somewhere along the line this grandma is supposed to be some like Rambo type character. I don't know, but the way that she goes about some of her mannerisms just aren't, they're weird. Okay, I don't like it. It's I don't know how to describe it. um
Thought she was fine.
it's
She was definitely ridiculous
yeah,
because
it's
being a grandma with a
ridiculous.
machine gun is ridiculous. But the character it's herself, like the actress, I didn't really pick up on anything that was annoying. If anything, I would say the sister was annoying with how many times she said bro to
Hmm.
her brother,
I
calling him bro, do this, bro, don't do that, bro. Like, get over yourself. Stop saying it so many times. You sound ridiculous.
I didn't pick up on that as much. It's just it's like I said, it's kind of like an attitude type thing. Like so they there's something that they keep doing in the film where they're alluding to that the grandma had like this secret life or whatever in the past, and everybody's like, "Grandma, how'd you do that?" And she's just like, "I'm just awesome," kind of a thing. Or like, "I'll tell you later." Um I don't like that. I really don't like it in characters. And it's not just like her. There's plenty of other movies where characters act that way, and I'm just like, get over yourself. Come on.
Stop being narcissistic. Is
Maybe,
that what you're looking for?
maybe. So let's go ahead and give the movie a rating before we get into the spoiler section. So Sarah, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Oh, I want to know what you're gonna give it.
Nope.
All right. But next time you're going first. I am giving Blue Beetle a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. What?
I said, whoa.
I'm a, I'm guessing by that response you're not up there, but I really liked the film. I thought it was fun. I could see myself watching it again. I like the charisma of the Blue Beetle himself. He's still kind of unsure of himself and learning his identity and stuff, but like I don't think he's like a jerk. I don't think he's like a wimp. Um I like the character in general. Uh the movie held my attention. Um yeah, I just really liked it.
I will say, there was a handful of kids in the movie theater and they loved it. So if you have like a young one that you want to take to go see Blue Beetle, there's a decent amount of swearing, but um, yeah, the kids were just laughing and they were laughing at a lot of the swearing, to be honest, just because they thought it was so funny. But uh, they really enjoyed it. For me, so I'm gonna go with probably a 7 out of 10. Um, I feel like this movie was a bit formulaic, if that's the right word. Um, like he got his suit, there's the girl, the bad guy goes after the family, kind of a thing. And we can see this in the trailer, so don't worry. Um, but and there's even some other things that happen which I don't want to quite say yet. Where
I
it's
did mention there's some similarities to the Venom movie.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for me, the cast is what carried the movie for me. I think I really enjoyed the performances, but if I think about, what happened, I didn't think that it really set itself apart from any other superhero type movies. Like there's nothing where I'm like, wow, that one like pushed the genre kind of a thing. So I thought I'd give it a good 7. It's in my opinion, it's above average, but I'm not like, yeah, I gotta go see that movie again. No, I'm not quite there.
All right.
But yeah, so that was our ratings out of 10. Sarah gave it a 10 out of 10. She was very excited from that movie. And then I gave it a 7. So this is kind of your time if you don't want spoilers to click away. Um, but yeah, we're
While
gonna
you're
go.
trying to click away, one last thing that I'll say is that I was really looking forward to this movie. And there's been a handful of movies this summer that I've been looking forward to that have disappointed me. And so I guess maybe that's influencing my rating a bit, is that I was very excited for it and I did not feel disappointed.
Maybe.
But okay, let's get into spoilers.
All right, so we're going into spoiler section here. So let's just talk about what happens in the movie first. We'll kind of go over that. So, uh, I think the company name is Cord, if I picked up on that right. Yeah, Cord. So there's this company, Cord, and Susan Sarandon. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Her character's name is Victoria, and basically she's in search of this blue beetle, scarab, whatever you want to call it. It's called a couple different names throughout the movie. But basically, this is like the powerhouse to eventually having Victoria's character create like a security force so that it's like the ultimate security force. Kind of like RoboCop, to be honest. If you haven't seen that movie, the idea is very similar. We can get rid of basically the police force and then have these robotic type things taking care of everything else. Um, so she finds this blue beetle while mining, and then we kind of cut over to Jaime. That's how it was pronounced, right? Jaime.
Jaime.
Jaime. I gave it a shot. Um, Jaime is coming home from college. Did he come back from the U.S.?
I think they're in the US the whole time. They keep talking about being in the Keys. I thought they were in the Florida Keys.
Oh, I don't know. I thought it started with a P.
Well, they're in the
Palermo?
city Palermo or something like that, or something similar to Palermo.
I don't know my cities. I'm sorry, but okay.
I,
So
I'm not sure if they're in the US or in Mexico, but they're somewhere in that general area. They talked about coming from Mexico across the border and stuff, so I think they're in the US. I think they're in the Florida Keys, but it's kind of besides the point.
so he's going back to his family. We can agree on that at least. And basically, when Jaime when Jaime gets back, he basically finds out that the family's gonna lose their house. The dad had like a heart attack or something, so his medical history isn't doing so hot. And the reason why they're losing the house isn't necessarily because they don't have money; it's because the landlord decided to triple the rent, and that's what they can't afford. And so he gets like all this bad news, so it drives him to try to get a prestigious job, something that's really nice. And then we get like the shot from the trailer where the camera pans up to his back and he looks over like he's some hot shot, and really he's just a cleaning dude for Cord, I believe, because at some point during all of this, Victoria comes in, and that's when he kind of starts to uh, start to mingle with the Cord family. Victoria, she comes through on a business call, her and her bodyguard. But we also see it's her niece, right? That's the relationship. Yeah. Jenny is her niece, and Jenny basically is saying, like, you're creating these weapons to Victoria, and you can't do that. That's not what this company is about. And Victoria's like, well, you and your dad uh, are worse for this company than you are good. And so basically, whatever, I'm going to do what I want. And so now it's Jenny's ambition to take down Victoria. And while she's on her way out, she meets up with Jaime, and he is asking for a job because Jenny witnessed him get fired because he tried to back up Jenny in that little fight with her and Victoria. And so she gives him her number and says, text me and I'll hook you up with a job. So the next day, he decides to go over there, and she is actually stealing the Blue Beetle. She's trying to get it out of the building and out of Victoria's grasp, so to speak, so she can't keep making these weapons.
I'm gonna clarify something for a second. So the item itself is the scarab. Scarab is like I don't this is my
The
own
bug.
interpretation. It's like an Egyptian way of saying beetle because whenever I see that it's a lot of like Egyptian stuff. Blue Beetle is the superhero that Rudy recognizes from like the olden days comics and stuff. And so Blue Beetle is like the superhero that comes from the scarab.
Okay, so I'll start calling the item a scarab in the person of Blue Beetle. All right. So she takes the scarab and bumps into Jaime and basically says, like, uh, you said you'd do anything for a job, right? And he's like, yeah. And so she gives him the scarab and tells him to just take off. And so he takes it back to his house, and that's where we get the trailer of him like morphing with the scarab and turning into the Blue Beetle, and like smacking up on the ceiling and stuff. It's like the daylight time during the day, and this is when he's first becoming Blue Beetle. Uh, he goes through his whole little thing, where he's flying up in the air. He splits the bus in half. Basically, his first impression of this Beetle thing, and then when it goes away, it leaves him butt naked. And so when he gets picked up, or no, he ends up back home. Like he crashes back through the roof, and he is naked in the middle of the house. And so they put a blanket over him, and yeah, so he wakes up, uh, and then do you want to pick it up from there? I'm blanking for whatever reason.
Sure. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. So they go back and they're able to find Jenny. Jenny's being gunned down essentially from people who think she's trying to steal the scarab, or they're not. I'm not sure why they're gunning her down exactly. Instead of just trying to take her prisoner. But anyway, so Jaime kind of rescues her, and they wind up going with Rudy to her dad's house. Her dad has passed away many years ago, or I'm sorry, the dad disappeared many years ago. Her mom's dead. I think they think that her dad is dead too, but he disappeared when she was like a little kid, so she hasn't seen him in ages. So anyway, they go to that house to try to figure out. It's kind of like the dad's lab, who knew about the scarab and stuff, and that's where they see the Blue Beetle gear that the dad had created. They learn that the scarab chooses you. You don't necessarily choose to become part of the scarab. So like not anybody can morph with this thing. It has to be agreeable to the scarab. They learn that the last person that had this, the only way to get rid of it is basically for the host to die. So he's stuck being Blue Beetle. He can't get this thing off his back, so to speak, both physically and uh mentally. Wow, I butchered that phrase. Um anyway, so they see that there's the helicopter going for their house, Jaime's house. So he flies over there to try to save his family. His dad, he's able to kick some butt. There's some cool action sequences. His family's able to escape, but the house burns down, and his dad winds up having a heart attack for a second time now, except this one he's not able to recover from. So Jaime's dad is now passed, which leaves him very upset for obvious reasons. They drop a claw onto Jaime, and basically it disables the scarab. So he still has it attached, but he's not able to use any of those abilities. So essentially, they're kidnapping him. Right. It's Victoria plus her bodyguard and whatnot. And so they take him back to their lab. So now it's the family trying to get Jaime back from the lab. And then Victoria is trying to like extract the essence of the scarab to be able to use it for her like super police force. Right. So that's what kind of the next good chunk of the movie is using some of Jenny's dad's gadgets and gizmos. That's where the grandma gets the giant machine gun. The sister gets some sort of weird, like, super punch hand shield thing. Um,
It reminded me a lot of the Nintendo. Is it the glove? The Nintendo glove? You know what I'm talking about?
the like really olden days one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if that was Nintendo or not, but I know what you're talking
it
about.
was Nintendo. I'm trying to see what was the name of that thing. Power Glove.
Power glove.
Looks
It
just
definitely was
like
a
it.
power glove for her.
Literally.
Maybe that's what they used as their prototype.
Very well could be.
Um, One thing that I want to bring up, and maybe it's because I'm not cultured enough, although I've taken many Spanish classes, is I did not realize that the sister's name was Milagro. I thought that they were trying to, I thought it sounded a lot like Mira to me, which Mira means look. So I kept thinking they were trying to tell people to look certain ways, but really they were just saying the sister's name. So if you are not super well versed with Hispanic names, Milagro is the sister's name. It's not them trying to say something, because a good chunk of this movie is in Spanish, and for the most part, it's subtitled. It's not like long sequences of speaking in Spanish. It's more like, a couple sentences here or there. It's not really anything that takes away from the movie, because I know I'm not super fan of watching full movies and subtitles. So I don't think that really goes away from the movie. But just there are a couple things here or there that are not subtitled. So that's why I was like not sure what they were saying. Okay, but anyway, off that tangent. Um, They wind up finding him. They disable the power for the building. They had already extracted the essence of the scarab, so Victoria now has that on some sort of like little data pad thing, and puts it into her bodyguard. So he is now like a super mech. Like he was a super mech before, and now he's like a really super mech. Um, so we get a lot of fighting between Blue Beetle and her super mech bodyguard. Uh, it's kind of like a you took everything from me, and then the scarab in is trying to tell him that remember you've told me like we don't kill people, like we've become one now and we're not going to kill anybody, so we're not going to kill this guy. And shows some of the memories from the bodyguards, so like showing that he's a person too, kind of a thing, and that he's not really fully in control of his suit. So what winds up happening, to kind of make a long story short for their extraction sequence, they're able to save Jaime. Everybody gets out of there, and the bodyguard basically drags Victoria by her shirt into the flames, and his suit has built up so much power that it creates like a super explosion. So Victoria's dead and the bodyguard is too. And they're able to, Jaime and his family are able to escape in this like, it's like a ship, uh, like a like an airplane, but it looks like a fly because they've got this like bug theme going.
It was a beetle.
Was it a beetle? It looked like a
Yes.
fly.
Yeah, it was basically a bigger version of the scarab.
The eyes were totally different.
Nah.
It had fly eyes. Beetles
Mm,
don't have eyes that look like that.
I don't know.
But anyway, um it's an insect. We'll go with that. How about that? So they're able
So,
to escape. They we kind of flash forward to, I don't know, the next day or something like that, and they're looking at their house that's been burned down, and the community's coming together, to bring them food and stuff, and uh we find out that Jenny has taken over the Cord Foundation because she's kind of the only living member left of the Cord family at this point. But they show her on an interview saying, we're not going to do weapons anymore. We're going to focus more on safety and like bettering society, and less on taking control and powering everything. So she shows up to the house, and tells them, that we'll get your house fixed, and we're not going to take your house from you anymore, because that's kind of what her aunt was trying to do, because her aunt was money hungry. They're able to have their first kiss between Jenny and Jaime. Oh, so cute. There's a little bit of humor in there too, with the scarab talking to him. Um, so he then takes her to kind of end the movie with them kind of riding off into the sunset, to go to her dad's house. Quite literally, he is flying her to her dad's house. So they're riding off in the sunset. Jeremy, what is our after credit scene?
it turns out that when they powered on the computer at the dad's house, that he must have some sort of receiver or detector that knows that that computer was turned on, because it was basically a distress signal of her dad trying to reach out, saying that he is alive and that he's searching for his daughter. I don't know anything about Blue Beetle besides this movie. It makes me wonder if something similar like that happens in the comic books, and maybe that's where they're heading towards for a sequel or something. Um, but turns out her dad is around.
I think they were heavily giving me sequel vibes. I would be surprised if there was not one.
DC is just being weird right now. That's why I preface the whole thing of if they continue it. Because like they made The Flash, this movie, and Aquaman like pretty much before they decided to go, oh, we're gonna scrap the old stuff. So I've heard this is part of the new universe, but I don't know.
It's a fair point. I also heard this is part of the new universe, but it's also kind of like a one-off, like, with the Flash, how they had like Batman was in there, and I don't even know. I think they had a couple different people in there, didn't they? Like a couple other superheroes.
They did. They had Wonder
Um,
Woman. Wonder
oh yes,
Woman.
yep, thank you. But with this one, it was just the Blue Beetle, so it's like a one-off adventure. I don't see how this really
It
ties into any of the other
was a standalone.
movies. So I don't know why you would scrap this movie. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't really affect anything.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to comment on because um, when I saw the scene starting, I was like, "Oh, I already know what's going to happen." It's something I thought that they could have left out. I guess the way that he syncs up, like actually being in sync with the Blue Beetle armor, is that he sees his dad in the afterlife or something because he's been like shocked so much and messed with by Victoria where he's like near death. And so he like has that limbo stage of talking to his dad, and the dad like tells him, "This is your purpose, this is why you're here." And then he regains consciousness, and then you can kind of see like the wave of him and the wave of the Blue Beetle, and now they're in sync. So like that was the way that they showed that he now is more in control of the Blue Beetle, because like before, like when he went to go save his family from the house and he was trying to activate the suit so he could go fly there, he had to put himself in danger because he didn't have control over the suit. Whereas at the end of the movie, after he's synced up with it, and Jenny's like, "Can I get that ride or whatever?" And he's like, "Absolutely, babe." And he just fires up the suit and then takes off because he wasn't in danger. Like she didn't pull a knife on him or something, and then all of a sudden, Blue Beetle. So they show how he gets connected to it, but quite honestly, I thought that was kind of like a, a overly used way of trying to do that. So I thought it was okay. Um, I think the one that was better was the villains because we actually didn't talk about this. So when Jaime is fighting with this bad guy, his name is Carapax. Um, he's just about to do like the final blow, and apparently the Blue Beetle armor like synced up and found out that dude's memories while the data transfer was happening because that's who they were putting it into. And apparently he was like taken from, well, when he was in his homeland as a kid, um, Victoria actually like bombed his village and killed his mom and then took him, saying he'll do kind of a thing. And then when he was in battle a handful of times, and then she kept trying to perfect him. She keeps reiterating to him throughout the whole film, "I'll make you better. I'll make you better." And really what she's trying to make him is like more and more of that mech armor. Like he's basically her test subject. And so Blue Beetle gets to like understand like this guy is just as damaged in this situation, if not more, than Jaime. And so that's what kind of pulls him away from uh, trying to kill him. So I like that he wasn't just like a mindless villain. Like they actually had a little bit of a backstory, and even if they squeeze it in there in the last couple minutes of the film, but I mean it helps. It builds his character. So I just thought those were interesting. The one for Blue Beetle was like, I've seen this a lot. But then when we saw the one for the villain, it was like, I'm glad we got this because now we kind of get to see a little bit more from him. Because really, all he was like the stupid bodyguard the whole time, like mindless. So it was good to give him something.
Yeah, you knew something was up the way that Victoria kept saying to him, like, remember all that I've done for you. Like, it sounded very forced. Like, she thinks she's done a lot for him, but I don't think he agreed with it. And so seeing that sequence of clips from him being a kid and stuff and going through her tests, it just really drove that point home.
Right. So I guess just to kind of wrap it up here, um, talking about the rating I gave it for the seven, I was saying it was kind of very formulated. Um, you know, Random kid happens to fall into this superhero thing. He has his montage of issues. Um, and then he gets a little bit of like his family gets in a little bit of trouble, and then he has to go save them. They even do the cliche that it's becoming more and more cliche, in my opinion. Starting with Marvel, and then it kind of crept into Star Wars. The whole half the helmet face mask thing is broken off. That way you can see the emotion of the character. It's starting to lose its. So, like, if we were to, the last time we saw this was in the show Kenobi, and there was more emotional weight to that scene, seeing, what was going on Vader's face. Whereas here, I felt like they only showed it just to show that he was like really mad and not necessarily like super emotional, if that makes sense. And so I didn't really see the point of needing it. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, I guess we have to have that just because that seems to be the thing to do. Um, but yeah, I just thought it was a little more generic, nothing too extravagant, but the people were awesome. Anything else you wanted to say before we go?
I know what you mean by the helmet thing. It's getting to be overdone, and I don't feel like he really shared a whole lot of emotion while the helmet was like that. Not that you could see on his face anyway, so I didn't really see a point to it, except that I guess it's the new thing to do. But overall, thinking of the movie as a whole, 10 out of 10 for me. I really liked it. 10 out of 10 does not mean that the movie is perfect. It just means that I really enjoyed it. I don't think there's anything that was a major flaw or a major thing that I would change. So yeah, it's a fun movie.
The one other thing that I would give a point of uniqueness to, at least I can't remember any other superhero films kind of like this. I like how Blue Beetle was like he didn't have to hide his identity the whole film. Everybody knew who he was right away, and so we kind of got to just ignore that whole screen time of, oh my god, gotta conceal my face, and then like when his uh the face plate whatever breaks, he doesn't have to like hide it from everybody else. So I think that gave a dynamic where the family was able to like come together around him right away and then interact with him and not have to waste time with the whole uh trying to hide it thing. But yeah, so that was our little movie discussion on Blue Beetle. Uh, I think we can both say that we'd recommend seeing it in theaters. Needless to say, I would not necessarily wait for streaming on this one. It was a good movie. But if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We got a lot of stuff coming for you in the weeks ahead for different movies that are coming out. I know I can list just a couple of them that I'm excited for are Expendables, Saw, The Nun 2, and Five Nights at Freddy's. I know we're really excited for that one. So make sure your notifications are turned on so you know when those come out. Drops a like if you like the video and drops a comment letting us know if you saw Blue Beetle and what your thoughts were on it. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.